Michael Chen, 29, and Sarah Williams, 27, disappeared on March 15, 2011, while hiking in a remote section of the Mojave Desert near 29 Palms, California. The couple had been documenting their cross-country road trip on social media when they vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their rental car and a mystery that would baffle investigators for over a decade. According to police reports, Chen, a software engineer from Portland, Oregon, and Williams, a graphic designer from the same city, had been dating for 3 years before embarking on what friends described as their dream vacation. The couple had saved money for 18 months to fund a month-long journey across the United States, with the Mojave Desert representing a significant milestone in their planned itinerary. Sarah's sister, Jennifer Williams, told investigators that the couple had been fascinated by desert photography after attending a gallery exhibition in Portland 6 months prior to their trip. "Sarah called me every few days during their travels," Jennifer stated in her police interview. She was excited about capturing sunrise photos in the desert. She said Michael had researched the best spots for photography, and they had planned this portion of their trip very carefully. Cell phone records obtained by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department showed that Chen had made several calls to desert outfitters and ranger stations in the weeks leading up to their visit. Store receipts found in their Portland apartment indicated purchases of hiking boots, water containers, sun protection gear, and camera equipment specifically designed for desert conditions. The couple arrived in 29 Palms on March 13, 2011, checking into the Desert Hills Motel on Adobe Road. Motel clerk Patricia Rodriguez remembered the pair as polite and well-prepared. They asked about early checkout procedures because they wanted to catch sunrise in the desert, Rodriguez told police. The man had maps spread out on the counter and was asking about road conditions. They seemed like experienced travelers. According to the investigation file, Chen and Williams spent March 14th exploring the Joshua Tree National Park visitor areas and purchasing additional supplies at a local gas station. Security camera footage from the Chevron station on Utah Trail showed them buying water, energy bars, and filling up their rental car at approximately 4:30 p.m. The cashier, David Martinez, later told detectives that Chen had asked about lesser-known desert locations good for photography. He wanted to know about places where tourists don't usually go, Martinez stated in his witness report. "I told him about some of the old mining roads, but I warned him about going out there alone. People get lost out there all the time." The couple's final confirmed location was their motel room on the evening of March 14th. The motel's guest log showed they had requested a 5 a.m. wake-up call for the following morning. Rodriguez confirmed that she had personally delivered the wake-up call and heard movement in the room, though she did not see the guests directly. Their rental car, a white Ford Escape, was discovered on March 16th by a park ranger conducting routine patrols. The vehicle was found parked at an unmarked pullout, approximately 12 miles from the main highway, near an area locals refer to as Cactus Springs. The car was unlocked, with no signs of struggle or damage, according to the initial police report. Inside the vehicle, investigators found the couple's luggage, including their cameras, phones, and identification. A detailed inventory conducted by Detective Robert Hayes of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department revealed that essential hiking supplies were missing, including their backpack, water containers, and first aid kit. This led investigators to initially theorize that the couple had embarked on a planned hike and encountered difficulties. Everything suggested they intended to return to the car, Detective Hayes noted in his report. Their phones were charging in the vehicle, and there was food and extra clothing still packed. It appeared they had taken only what they needed for a day hike. The couple's families were notified when they failed to check out of their motel as scheduled on March 16th. Sarah's parents, Robert and Linda Williams, drove from Sacramento to 29 Palms immediately upon receiving the call from local authorities. Michael's parents, David and Helen Chen, flew in from Portland the following day. "We knew something was seriously wrong," Linda Williams told reporters during the initial search efforts. "Sarah was very responsible about staying in contact. She had never gone this long without calling us during their entire trip." The initial search operation, coordinated by the San Bernardino County Search and Rescue Team, began on March 17th. The effort involved 40 volunteers, 2 helicopters, and specialized desert rescue units. Search teams covered a 15-square-mile area surrounding the location where the rental car was found. Captain Maria Santos, who coordinated the search efforts, described the challenges facing rescue teams. "The terrain in that area is extremely difficult," Santos explained to local media. "There are countless ravines, rock formations, and dense vegetation that can hide someone just a few feet away. The desert can be disorienting even for experienced hikers." Weather conditions during the initial search period were described by the National Weather Service as typical for mid-March in the Mojave Desert, with daytime temperatures reaching 75 degrees Fahrenheit and overnight lows dropping to 45 degrees. Visibility was excellent, with no significant weather events recorded in the area during the relevant time frame. Family members provided detailed descriptions of the couple's experience level and preparation habits. According to Michael's brother, Thomas Chen, both individuals were regular hikers who had completed several challenging trails in Oregon and Washington state. "Michael was always over-prepared for everything," Thomas stated. "He researched every trail, carried extra supplies, and never took unnecessary risks. That's what makes this so confusing." The couple's social media accounts provided investigators with a detailed timeline of their cross-country journey. Posts from their Facebook and Instagram accounts showed them visiting landmarks in Nevada, Arizona, and California in the days leading up to their disappearance. The final post, uploaded by Sarah on March 14th, showed a sunset photo taken from their motel room with the caption, "Tomorrow we explore the real desert." Analysis of their digital footprint revealed that both Chen and Williams had researched desert safety extensively before their trip. Browser history from Chen's laptop, recovered from their Portland apartment, showed visits to hiking safety websites, desert survival guides, and forums dedicated to desert photography. Dr. Amanda Russell, a desert ecology expert who was consulted during the initial investigation, explained the unique dangers posed by the Mojave landscape. "Even experienced outdoor enthusiasts can encounter unexpected challenges in this environment," Dr. Russell noted. "Underground caves, sudden weather changes, and disorienting terrain features can create dangerous situations very quickly." The search operation continued for 12 days, with teams covering progressively larger areas, as the initial search zones yielded no results. Thermal imaging equipment was deployed from aircraft, and ground teams used trained search dogs to attempt to pick up the couple's scent trail from their abandoned vehicle. Despite the extensive efforts, no trace of Chen and Williams was discovered during the initial search period. The official search was scaled back on March 28th, though periodic searches continued at the request of the families. "We exhausted every lead and searched every area that was reasonably accessible," Captain Santos reported to local media. "This case represents one of the most comprehensive desert search operations our department has ever conducted." The case attracted regional media attention, with local news stations running regular updates during the search period. The story of the missing couple resonated with desert communities, many of whom volunteered their time and local knowledge to assist in the search efforts. As the initial search concluded without results, the case was classified as an ongoing missing persons investigation. The couple's families established a reward fund and continued to coordinate periodic search efforts with volunteer groups specializing in desert recovery operations. The mystery of what happened to Michael Chen and Sarah Williams during their planned day hike would remain unsolved for exactly 1 decade, becoming one of the most puzzling disappearances in Mojave Desert history. The formal missing persons report for Michael Chen and Sarah Williams was filed with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department at 11:47 a.m. on March 16, 2011, when the couple failed to check out of the Desert Hills Motel as scheduled. Motel manager Patricia Rodriguez initiated the welfare check after discovering that the couple had not vacated their room by the standard checkout time and were not responding to phone calls or knocks on their door. Deputy Sheriff James Morrison responded to the welfare check request and discovered that the couple's belongings remained undisturbed in their motel room. The room showed no signs of struggle or hurried departure. Personal items, including toiletries, extra clothing, and Chen's laptop computer were found exactly where housekeeping staff reported seeing them the previous day. The room looked like they had stepped out temporarily, Deputy Morrison noted in his initial report. Beds were unmade but not disheveled, and their suitcases were packed as if they intended to return. and finish preparing for departure. The discovery of their abandoned rental car later that afternoon transformed what might have been a simple missing persons case into a complex desert search operation. Park Ranger Kevin Walsh found the white Ford Escape at approximately 3:15 p.m. during a routine patrol of the Cactus Springs area, a remote section known primarily to local off-road enthusiasts and experienced desert hikers. According to Walsh's incident report, the vehicle appeared to have been parked intentionally rather than abandoned in distress. The car was positioned properly within the informal parking area. Doors were unlocked but not wide open, and there were no immediate signs of mechanical problems or emergency situations. Detective Robert Hayes, assigned as the lead investigator, arrived at the scene at 4:45 p.m. and began the systematic documentation that would become the foundation of a decade-long investigation. The initial evidence collection revealed several key details that shaped the early direction of the search efforts. The vehicle interior suggested a planned excursion rather than an emergency situation, Detective Hayes documented. Car keys were found in the center console, along with both individuals' cell phones, which appeared to have been intentionally left behind rather than forgotten. The couple's hiking backpack was missing, along with their portable water containers, first aid supplies, and Sarah's camera equipment. However, investigators found Michael's backup camera, extra batteries, and a detailed trail map of the surrounding area with several locations marked in red ink. Analysis of the map markings became a crucial element in determining search priorities. The marked locations corresponded to various elevated points and rock formations within a 5-mile radius of where the car was found. Park officials familiar with the area confirmed that these locations were known for offering expansive desert views and were popular with serious photographers. The marked spots on their map showed they had done significant research, explained Park Superintendent Lisa Crawford. These weren't random locations. They were specific vantage points that would require moderate to difficult hiking to reach. The first organized search effort began at dawn on March 17th, coordinated by the San Bernardino County Search and Rescue Team under the direction of Captain Maria Santos. The initial search deployed 36 trained volunteers, including specialists in desert terrain navigation, rock climbing, and emergency medical response. Search teams were organized into 6 groups, each assigned to specific sectors radiating outward from the abandoned vehicle. The sectors were determined based on the locations marked on the couple's map, combined with analysis of the most likely routes they might have taken given their documented experience level and physical conditioning. Helicopter support was provided by the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, with 2 aircraft conducting aerial surveys of the broader search area. Pilot Officer Sarah Mitchell reported that visibility conditions were excellent, but the terrain presented significant challenges for spotting individuals or equipment from above. The desert landscape in this area is extremely varied, Officer Mitchell noted in her flight report. Deep washes, boulder fields, and dense vegetation create countless areas where people could be located just yards away from search teams without being visible. The family's arrival in 29 Palms added an emotional dimension to the search operation that resonated throughout the small desert community. Sarah's parents, Robert and Linda Williams, established a temporary base at their daughter's motel while coordinating with law enforcement and organizing additional volunteer support. Michael's parents, David and Helen Chen, arrived from Portland on March 18th and immediately joined the search coordination efforts. David Chen, who had military experience in logistics, worked with Captain Santos to optimize search grid patterns and resource allocation. "We knew we had to find them quickly," David Chen told local reporters. "Every hour that passed reduced the chances of a successful rescue. We couldn't afford to waste time or resources on inefficient search patterns." The search operation expanded significantly on March 19th, when additional volunteer groups arrived from across Southern California. Desert rescue specialists from Los Angeles, Orange County, and Imperial County contributed personnel and specialized equipment to the effort. Technical rescue teams brought rope systems and rock climbing equipment to access difficult terrain features, identified as potential locations where the couple might have encountered problems. These teams focused on steep ravines, cliff areas, and deep washes that could trap injured hikers. By March 20th, the search had grown to include more than 80 active participants, making it one of the largest civilian search operations in the Mojave Desert's recorded history. Local businesses donated food, water, and supplies, while area residents provided temporary housing for out-of-town volunteers. The community response surprised even experienced search coordinators. Desert communities typically support rescue operations, but the scale of volunteer involvement in the Chen Williams search exceeded normal parameters. "I've coordinated searches in this area for 15 years, Captain Santos explained to media outlets. The level of community involvement in this case was extraordinary. People drove hundreds of miles to volunteer their time and expertise. Despite the extensive human resources committed to the search, the vast scale of the potential search area presented ongoing challenges. Computer analysis suggested that the couple could theoretically have traveled up to 25 miles from their vehicle in any direction, creating a potential search zone of nearly 2,000 square miles. Search coordinators use statistical modeling to prioritize areas based on factors including the couple's documented experience level, physical condition, available supplies, and weather conditions. This analysis focused initial efforts on a more manageable 12-square-mile area, considered most likely to contain evidence of their activities. Tracking specialists brought in specially trained search dogs to attempt to establish a scent trail from the abandoned vehicle. 3 different dog teams were deployed over a 4-day period, but desert conditions and the time elapsed since the couple's disappearance prevented the establishment of reliable scent tracks. Desert environments present unique challenges for tracking dogs, explained handler Mike Rodriguez, whose German Shepherd had successfully located missing persons in previous desert searches. Wind patterns, temperature variations, and the rocky terrain all interfere with scent retention and tracking accuracy. As the search entered its second week, investigators expanded their focus to include potential alternative scenarios beyond the initial assumption of a hiking emergency. Detective Hayes began interviewing local residents, business owners, and frequent desert visitors to develop a more comprehensive understanding of activity in the area during the relevant time frame. These interviews revealed that the Cactus Springs area, while remote, was not entirely isolated. Several local residents reported seeing other vehicles in the vicinity during the weekend when Chen and Williams disappeared, though none could provide specific details about the occupants or circumstances. "We learned that this area sees more activity than we initially realized," Detective Hayes documented. "Off-road enthusiasts, prospectors, and other hikers use these trails regularly. We needed to consider whether the couple might have encountered other people during their hike." The investigation team also examined the couple's background more thoroughly, looking for any personal or professional factors that might be relevant to their disappearance. Interviews with friends, family members, and co-workers in Portland revealed no indication of relationship problems, financial difficulties, or other personal issues that might suggest alternative explanations. Both individuals were described consistently as responsible, well-prepared, and safety-conscious. Sarah's employer at a Portland design firm confirmed that she had requested vacation time well in advance and had expressed excitement about the trip in conversations with colleagues. Michael's supervisor at his software engineering company provided similar testimony, noting that Chen had been methodical in preparing for the vacation and had completed all work assignments before departing. Bank records showed no unusual financial activity, and both individuals had maintained regular contact with family throughout their cross-country journey. Medical records obtained with family permission showed no significant health conditions that might have contributed to an emergency situation. Both Chen and Williams were described by their physicians as physically fit and capable of moderate hiking activities. By March 25th, search teams had covered more than 50 square miles of desert terrain without discovering any trace of the missing couple. The search had evolved from a rescue operation to a recovery effort, though officials continued to emphasize that both possibilities remained under consideration. Weather conditions during the search period remained favorable, with mild temperatures and clear visibility. However, search coordinators noted that conditions during the couple's actual hike on March 15th might have been different, potentially contributing to their situation. National Weather Service records showed that a brief weather system had moved through the area on the evening of March 15th, bringing strong winds and a slight temperature drop. While not severe, These conditions could have affected visibility and comfort levels for hikers caught in exposed terrain. The search operation was formally scaled back on March 28th, though Captain Santos emphasized that the case remained active and that periodic search efforts would continue based on new information or evidence. The decision to reduce the search intensity was made in consultation with the families and based on the comprehensive coverage already achieved. We have searched every area that our analysis suggested was likely to contain evidence, Captain Santos announced during a press conference. While we are scaling back the daily search operations, this case remains a high priority, and we will continue to investigate any new leads or information. The families expressed gratitude for the search efforts, while announcing their intention to continue private search activities using volunteer groups and specialized consultants. A reward fund was established, initially offering $10,000 for information leading to the couple's location. Local media coverage of the search operation had attracted regional attention, with news outlets from Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Phoenix reporting on the story. The case began to represent broader concerns about desert safety and the challenges facing search and rescue operations in remote areas. As March ended and the official search concluded, the disappearance of Michael Chen and Sarah Williams had become one of the most extensively investigated missing persons cases in San Bernardino County history. Despite the enormous effort invested, their fate remained completely unknown, leaving families, investigators, and the desert community with more questions than answers. The Chen Williams case officially transitioned to cold case status on June 15, 2011, 3 months after the couple's disappearance, when the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department concluded that all immediate investigative leads had been exhausted. Detective Robert Hayes, who remained the assigned investigator, filed a comprehensive case summary documenting over 200 hours of active investigation time and the interview of 47 potential witnesses. According to department records, the decision to reclassify the case was based on several factors, including the completion of the extensive physical search, the lack of credible witness sightings, and the absence of any evidence suggesting criminal activity. However, the case file remained open, and Detective Hayes continued to review new information as it became available. We had followed every lead to its conclusion, Detective Hayes explained in a departmental review meeting documented in case files. The physical search was the most comprehensive ever conducted in that area, and we had interviewed everyone with potential relevant information. At that point, we were waiting for new evidence to develop. The families refused to accept the cold case designation and intensified their private search efforts throughout 2011 and 2012. Robert and Linda Williams relocated temporarily to 29 Palms, establishing a semi-permanent base of operations for continued search activities. They coordinated with volunteer groups, hired private investigators, and organized monthly search expeditions. David Chen documented the family's ongoing efforts in a detailed blog that attracted national attention and support from missing persons advocacy groups. The blog, titled "Finding Michael and Sarah," became a resource for other families dealing with similar situations and generated thousands of dollars in donations for continued search efforts. "We cannot simply wait for official channels to provide answers," David Chen wrote in a blog post dated September 2011. "Every day that passes reduces the chances of finding evidence, but we refuse to give up on our children. They would never give up on us." The private investigation efforts revealed several concerning patterns in the Mojave Desert region that had not been fully explored during the initial official investigation. Research conducted by private investigator Margaret Thompson, hired by the families in August 2011, identified 12 other missing persons cases in the broader Mojave Desert area between 2005 and 2011. Thompson's analysis, shared with law enforcement agencies, suggested that the Chen Williams case might not be an isolated incident. Her research identified common factors among several cases, including experienced hikers disappearing from remote areas with no trace of their activities or equipment. The statistical probability of this many experienced outdoor enthusiasts simply getting lost without leaving any evidence is extremely low, Thompson documented in her report to the families. There appears to be a pattern that warrants further investigation by law enforcement agencies. However, law enforcement officials were cautious about drawing connections between unrelated cases. Captain Maria Santos, interviewed about Thompson's research in early 2012, emphasized that desert environments naturally present high risks for outdoor activities. The Mojave Desert covers thousands of square miles of extremely challenging terrain, Captain Santos explained to reporters. While we take every missing persons case seriously, we have to be careful about suggesting connections without concrete evidence. The case gained renewed attention in March 2012, on the first anniversary of the disappearance, when the families organized a memorial search event that attracted over 150 volunteers. The anniversary search covered areas that had not been thoroughly examined during the initial operation, focusing on more remote locations that would require advanced hiking skills to access. Local news coverage of the anniversary event included interviews with desert survival experts who provided context about the challenges facing anyone lost in the Mojave environment. Dr. Richard Martinez, a professor of desert ecology at the University of California, explained the unique dangers present in the region where Chen and Williams disappeared. That particular area of the Mojave contains several geological features that can be extremely hazardous, Dr. Martinez told KMER News. Hidden drop-offs, unstable rock formations, and maze-like canyon systems can disorient even experienced hikers. Recovery of individuals lost in such terrain can be nearly impossible without precise location information. Throughout 2012 and 2013, the families continued to receive periodic reports of possible sightings or discoveries, though none proved to be credible upon investigation. Detective Hayes documented 23 separate follow-up investigations during this period, including reports from hikers who claimed to have found clothing or equipment in desert locations. Every reported sighting or discovery had to be investigated thoroughly, Detective Hayes noted in his case files. Family members understandably wanted to pursue every possibility, and we had an obligation to verify any potential evidence. The most promising lead during this period came in November 2012, when a group of rock climbers reported finding a backpack in a remote canyon approximately 8 miles from where the couple's car had been discovered. The backpack contained water bottles and hiking equipment, but forensic analysis determined that none of the items belonged to Chen or Williams. DNA testing of the recovered items, conducted by the California Department of Justice Crime Lab, eliminated any connection to the missing couple. However, the discovery highlighted the presence of other lost equipment in the area, suggesting that the desert had claimed other victims whose disappearances might not have been reported. Private investigator Thompson expanded her research during 2013, focusing on historical missing persons cases in the Mojave Desert dating back to the 1990s. Her analysis identified 34 cases of individuals who had disappeared in the broader region without resolution, though law enforcement agencies maintained that most could be explained by the inherent dangers of desert environments. The families also explored alternative investigative approaches during this period, including consultation with specialists in missing persons cases and desert survival. These consultations generally supported the theory that Chen and Williams had encountered some form of hiking emergency, but provided no specific insights into their location or fate. In 2014, the case gained national media attention when it was featured on several television programs focusing on unsolved mysteries. The exposure generated hundreds of tips from viewers across the country, though none provided breakthrough information according to law enforcement records. Detective Hayes documented that the television coverage resulted in 127 separate tips being submitted to the department between February and June 2014. Each tip required investigation and documentation, consuming significant resources without producing actionable leads. Media attention often generates a high volume of well-intentioned but ultimately unhelpful information, Detective Hayes noted in his case review. People want to help, but most tips are based on speculation rather than factual knowledge. The family's persistence began to yield some results in terms of policy changes and increased awareness of desert safety issues. Their advocacy efforts contributed to the installation of additional emergency communication equipment in remote areas of Joshua Tree National Park and improved coordination between search and rescue agencies. Sarah's mother, Linda Williams, became a vocal advocate for missing persons families and testified before the California State Assembly about the need for improved search and rescue resources in remote areas. Her testimony was incorporated into legislation that provided additional funding for desert search operations. Our daughter's case exposed significant gaps in our ability to locate missing persons in remote desert environments, Linda Williams testified in March 2015. While we continue to search for Sarah and Michael, we also want to ensure that other families don't face the same challenges we have encountered. By 2015, the private search efforts had covered more than 200 square miles of desert terrain through organized volunteer expeditions. The searches were typically conducted on weekends, with volunteers using GPS technology to document areas that had been thoroughly examined. Despite the extensive private search efforts, no evidence related to Chen and Williams was discovered during this period. The searches did result in the recovery of equipment and remains related to other missing persons cases, leading to closure for several other families. The case continued to attract periodic media attention through 2016 and 2017, particularly during anniversary periods and when other high-profile disappearances occurred in desert environments. The Chen Williams case had become a reference point for discussions about desert safety and search and rescue challenges. Detective Hayes retired from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department in 2017, transferring the case file to Detective Lisa Rodriguez, who inherited responsibility for the ongoing cold case investigation. The transition included a comprehensive case review that documented all investigative activities conducted since 2011. Detective Hayes had maintained meticulous records throughout his investigation, Detective Rodriguez noted in her case transfer documentation. The file represented one of the most thoroughly documented missing persons investigations in department history. The families marked the 7th anniversary of the disappearance in March 2018 with a smaller memorial service, acknowledging that their intensive search activities had not produced the answers they sought. However, they maintained their commitment to continuing periodic search efforts and keeping the case in public awareness. 7 years ago, we believed we would have answers by now, David Chen wrote in his blog. While we haven't found Michael and Sarah, we have learned that their case represents broader challenges facing missing persons investigations in remote areas. We continue to hope for resolution while working to help other families facing similar situations. Throughout this period, the Mojave Desert continued to challenge search and rescue operations with new missing persons cases. Between 2011 and 2018, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department documented 43 missing persons reports in the broader desert region, with varying outcomes ranging from successful rescues to ongoing cold cases. The Chen Williams case had become part of the desert's dark legacy, representing both the beauty and danger of one of America's most challenging environments. As 2018 ended, the case remained officially open but inactive, with no new leads or evidence to guide continued investigation efforts. The families had not given up hope entirely, but their focus had shifted toward advocacy and helping other missing persons cases, rather than intensive search activities. The case file, now containing thousands of pages of documentation, represented nearly a decade of effort by law enforcement, volunteers, and desperate families seeking answers that the desert had not yet chosen to reveal. As the 10th anniversary of the disappearance approached, the Chen Williams case stood as one of the most extensively investigated and well-documented missing persons cases in Mojave Desert history. Yet the basic question of what happened to the young couple remained as mysterious as ever. On April 3, 2021, exactly 10 years and 19 days after Michael Chen and Sarah Williams disappeared, their remains were discovered by a group of geology students conducting field research in a remote section of the Mojave Desert, approximately 14 miles southeast of where their rental car had been found. The discovery location, known locally as Devil's Garden due to its dense concentration of barrel cacti, had never been included in the original search area due to its extreme remoteness and difficult terrain access. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the supervising professor leading the geological survey from California State University San Bernardino, reported the discovery to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department at 2:47 p.m. According to her official statement, the students had been collecting mineral samples when graduate student Marcus Thompson noticed what appeared to be fabric material attached to a large barrel cactus, approximately 400 yards from their research site. Initially, we thought it might be debris left by campers or hikers, Dr. Walsh stated in her witness report. However, when we approached the location for a closer examination, it became clear that we were looking at human remains. We immediately stopped our activities and contacted law enforcement. The crime scene, as it was immediately classified by responding officers, presented investigators with one of the most disturbing discoveries in the department's history. Both bodies were found secured to a massive barrel cactus using climbing rope, positioned in a manner that suggested they had been placed there deliberately rather than having died from natural causes or hiking accidents. Detective Lisa Rodriguez, who had inherited the case from retired Detective Hayes, arrived at the scene at 4:15 p.m., accompanied by crime scene technicians and the county coroner's office. The remote location required a four-wheel drive approach over unmarked desert terrain, followed by a quarter-mile hike to reach the discovery site. The scene immediately indicated that we were dealing with a criminal act rather than a hiking emergency, Detective Rodriguez documented in her initial crime scene report. The positioning of the remains and the presence of restraining materials suggested that both individuals had been victims of violence. The San Bernardino County Coroner's Office, led by Dr. Patricia Hernandez, began the complex process of documenting and recovering the remains while preserving evidence for criminal investigation. The desert environment had naturally preserved some materials while destroying others, creating challenges for forensic analysis. Dr. Hernandez noted in her preliminary report that the extreme desert conditions had mummified portions of the remains while completely destroying other tissue. The presence of the barrel cactus had provided some protection from scavenging animals, though natural decomposition processes had been accelerated by temperature variations and exposure to elements. The desert environment created a complex preservation scenario, Dr. Hernandez explained to the investigation team. Some evidence was remarkably well preserved due to the dry conditions, while other materials had been completely degraded by 10 years of exposure to extreme temperature cycles. Each crime scene technician spent 4 days documenting every aspect of the discovery location. Photography, measurements, and evidence collection required specialized equipment to be transported to the remote site. The investigation team established a temporary base camp to support the extended processing period. The rope used to secure the bodies was identified as standard climbing rope available at outdoor equipment retailers throughout the region. However, forensic analysis revealed that the rope had been cut with a sharp instrument rather than showing wear patterns typical of natural failure or animal damage. Additional evidence recovered at the scene included remnants of the couple's hiking equipment, including portions of their backpack and water containers. These items were scattered in the immediate area around the cactus, suggesting they had been present at the location since the time of death. Analysis of the scattered equipment revealed several concerning details. The couple's camera equipment was missing entirely, though camera straps and lens caps were found among the debris. Their first aid kit had been opened and contents scattered, though it was unclear whether this occurred during the initial incident or during the subsequent decade of exposure. The remote location of the discovery site raised immediate questions about how the couple had traveled such a distance from their abandoned vehicle. Analysis of topographical maps indicated that reaching Devil's Garden would require crossing extremely difficult terrain, including steep ravines, boulder fields, and dense vegetation areas. The distance and terrain between their car and where they were found suggests either that they were forced to travel to this location or that they had intended to reach this specific area for reasons we don't yet understand, Detective Rodriguez noted in her investigation summary. The families were notified of the discovery on April 4th, after preliminary identification had been confirmed through dental records and personal effects found at the scene. The notification calls were made by Detective Rodriguez personally, ending a decade of uncertainty with tragic confirmation. Linda Williams later described receiving the call as both devastating and relieving. "We had never stopped hoping we would find them alive," she told reporters during a press conference organized by the family's attorney. "While this news is heartbreaking, it also provides us with some measure of closure after 10 years of not knowing." The discovery immediately elevated the case from a missing persons investigation to a potential homicide investigation. Detective Rodriguez assembled a task force including specialists in desert crime scenes, forensic anthropology, and cold case investigations. Dr. Michael Foster, a forensic anthropologist from the University of California system, was brought in to assist with analysis of the remains. His expertise in cases involving extended exposure to desert environments proved crucial in extracting maximum information from the limited physical evidence available. Cases involving remains that have been exposed to desert conditions for extended periods require specialized analytical approaches. Dr. Foster explained to the investigation team, "We needed to carefully distinguish between damage caused by natural processes and evidence of criminal activity." The investigation revealed that the couple's cell phones, which had been left in their rental car, contained no evidence of communication attempts after their disappearance. This supported the theory that whatever happened to them occurred shortly after they began their hike on March 15, 2011. Bank records and credit card activity showed no transactions after March 14th, confirming that both individuals had been deceased since early in their disappearance timeline. This information helped investigators focus on the initial 24 to 48-hour period following their departure from the motel. The case attracted renewed national media attention as news of the discovery spread. The story of the couple found tied to a cactus after 10 years captured public imagination and generated hundreds of new tips from individuals who claimed to have information about the original disappearance. Detective Rodriguez established a tip line specifically for the renewed investigation and assigned additional personnel to process the incoming information. During the first week following the discovery announcement, the department received over 300 calls with potential information. The media coverage generated significant public interest, and we were grateful for any information that might help us understand what happened to these young people, Detective Rodriguez told reporters. However, the volume of tips required substantial resources to investigate properly. Among the tips received were several reports from individuals who claimed to have seen suspicious activity in the general area during March 2011. These reports had not been made during the original investigation, leading investigators to question why witnesses had not come forward at the time. One particularly significant tip came from a retired military veteran who reported seeing multiple vehicles at an unmarked desert location during the weekend of the disappearance. The witness, Thomas Mitchell, had been reluctant to contact authorities in 2011 but felt compelled to share his information following news of the discovery. "I saw vehicles parked in an area where you normally wouldn't expect to see anyone," Mitchell stated in his witness interview. "At the time, I assumed it was just people camping or exploring. I didn't think much of it until I heard about these poor people being found." The investigation team used advanced GPS technology and satellite imagery to identify the specific location Mitchell described. Analysis revealed that his reported sighting occurred approximately 2 miles from Devil's Garden, within a reasonable travel distance for individuals on foot. Forensic analysis of soil samples from the discovery site indicated that the remains had been placed in their location shortly after death, rather than being moved there at a later time. This evidence supported the theory that the crime had occurred in the immediate vicinity of where the bodies were found. The coroner's office worked with forensic specialists to determine the cause of death, though the extended exposure period and natural decomposition limited the available evidence. Preliminary analysis indicated that both individuals had suffered trauma consistent with criminal activity, though specific details were not released pending completion of the investigation. Determining exact cause of death in cases with this level of decomposition requires extensive analysis and comparison of multiple evidence sources, Dr. Hernandez explained during a press briefing. "We are committed to providing the families and law enforcement with the most accurate information possible." The investigation expanded to include analysis of any similar crimes that might have occurred in desert regions throughout the Southwest. Detective Rodriguez coordinated with law enforcement agencies in Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico to identify potential patterns or connections. This expanded analysis revealed several unsolved cases with similar characteristics, including experienced hikers who had disappeared from remote areas and were later found deceased under suspicious circumstances. However, establishing definitive connections between cases proved challenging due to jurisdictional boundaries and varying investigation approaches. The families announced the establishment of a memorial fund in honor of Michael and Sarah, focusing on improving desert safety education and supporting search and rescue operations. The fund reflected their commitment to helping prevent similar tragedies while honoring their children's memory. Michael and Sarah loved the outdoors and would want their legacy to include helping others stay safe while enjoying nature, David Chen announced during a memorial service held in 29 Palms. While we may never fully understand what happened to them, we can work to ensure better outcomes for other families. Local desert communities responded to the discovery with a mixture of shock and renewed concern about safety in remote areas. The revelation that the couple had been victims of violence rather than a hiking accident changed perceptions about risks associated with desert recreation activities. Several outdoor equipment retailers in the region reported increased sales of emergency communication devices and personal safety equipment following news coverage of the case. Desert hiking groups also implemented new safety protocols, requiring multiple communication check-ins during remote excursions. The investigation team continued processing evidence and following leads throughout the spring and summer of 2021. Advanced DNA analysis techniques not available during the original investigation were applied to evidence recovered from the scene, though results were limited by the extended exposure period. By August 2021, the investigation had consumed over 500 hours of detective time and involved consultation with specialists from multiple disciplines. Despite the intensive effort, investigators had not identified specific suspects or developed a definitive theory about the circumstances surrounding the couple's deaths. This case represents one of the most complex criminal investigations our department has ever undertaken, Sheriff John McMahon stated during a press briefing in September 2021. We remain committed to finding answers for the families and bringing those responsible to justice. The case file had grown to include thousands of pages of documentation, hundreds of photographs, and extensive forensic analysis reports. The investigation remained active, with detectives continuing to pursue leads and analyze evidence as it became available. As the first anniversary of the discovery approached in spring 2022, the Chen Williams case had become a reference point for discussions about desert safety, cold case investigations, and the challenges facing law enforcement in remote areas. The decade-long mystery had finally yielded some answers, though the most important questions about who was responsible and why the crime had occurred remained unanswered. The desert had finally revealed its secret after 10 years of silence, but the revelation had only deepened the mystery surrounding what had happened to Michael Chen and Sarah Williams during their final hours in the unforgiving Mojave landscape. The breakthrough in the Chen Williams investigation came on September 14, 2021, when advanced DNA analysis conducted by the California Department of Justice Crime Laboratory identified genetic material from an unknown individual on rope fragments recovered from the crime scene. The DNA profile was immediately entered into the Combined DNA Index System, CODIS, resulting in a match to 34-year-old Marcus Donovan, a convicted felon with a history of assault and robbery charges in Nevada and Arizona. Detective Lisa Rodriguez received notification of the DNA match at 9:23 a.m. and immediately coordinated with the San Bernardino County Fugitive Task Force to locate Donovan. Database records indicated that he had been living under an assumed identity in Barstow, California, approximately 45 miles from the original crime scene location, where he worked as a mechanic at an independent auto repair shop under the name Marcus Davis. The DNA match provided us with our first concrete lead in the case, Detective Rodriguez documented in her investigation report. Donovan's criminal history and proximity to the crime scene made him an immediate person of interest, requiring urgent investigation and surveillance. Background investigation revealed that Donovan had an extensive criminal record, spanning 3 states, including convictions for assault, robbery, and illegal weapons possession. Nevada authorities had linked him to at least 4 separate incidents involving attacks on hikers and campers in remote desert areas between 2007 and 2010. Surveillance of Donovan's residence and workplace began immediately, coordinated by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department and federal agents from the FBI's Violent Crime Task Force. The surveillance revealed that Donovan maintained a predictable routine, traveling between his small apartment on the outskirts of Barstow and the auto repair shop where employment records showed he had worked for 3 years. During the surveillance period, investigators discovered that Donovan frequently spent weekends camping in remote desert areas, often returning with items that appeared inconsistent with his limited income. Surveillance teams documented him visiting locations throughout the Mojave Desert, including areas within 20 miles of where Chen and Williams had disappeared. On September 16, 2021, investigators executed simultaneous search warrants at Donovan's residence, workplace, and a storage unit he rented under his false identity. The searches were conducted by a joint task force including detectives, crime scene technicians, and federal agents specializing in violent crimes in remote areas. The search of Donovan's apartment yielded several items of significant evidentiary value. Hidden in a bedroom closet, investigators discovered camera equipment matching the description of items owned by Michael Chen and Sarah Williams. Serial number verification confirmed that the camera and 2 lenses had belonged to the missing couple. Additionally, investigators recovered a collection of more than 200 photographs showing various desert locations, including numerous images of the Devil's Garden area where the bodies had been discovered. The photographs appeared to have been taken over several years, suggesting that Donovan had been using the remote location for illegal activities long before the Chen Williams incident. The recovered evidence strongly suggested that Donovan had direct knowledge of the crime and had retained valuable items belonging to the victims, Detective Rodriguez noted in her search warrant return. The extensive collection of photographs indicated intimate familiarity with the crime scene location that went far beyond casual knowledge. The search also revealed camping equipment, rope identical to that used to restrain the victims, and a journal containing entries describing encounters with desert hikers and tourists. Several entries specifically mentioned opportunities to acquire equipment from careless travelers in remote locations. Donovan was arrested without incident at his workplace on September 17, 2021, and transported to the San Bernardino County Jail for questioning. Initial interviews were conducted by Detective Rodriguez and FBI agent Sarah Martinez, who specialized in violent crimes occurring in isolated environments. During the first interrogation session, Donovan denied any knowledge of the Chen Williams case and claimed that the camera equipment found in his possession had been purchased legitimately from a pawn shop in Las Vegas several years earlier. However, he was unable to provide receipts, witness verification, or specific details about the alleged purchase. Donovan's initial responses were evasive and contained multiple inconsistencies, Detective Rodriguez documented in her interrogation report. His explanations for possessing the victim's property were not credible, and his demeanor suggested deception about his knowledge of the case. Further investigation revealed that Donovan had been living in the 29 Palms area during March 2011, renting a small mobile home on the outskirts of town from a landlord who rarely visited the property. Employment records showed that he had been working sporadically as a day laborer for various construction companies, with frequent periods of unemployment that provided extensive time for desert activities. Cell phone records from March 2011, obtained through federal court order, showed that Donovan's device had been active in the immediate area of the Chen Williams disappearance during the crucial time frame. Tower triangulation data placed his phone within a 3-mile radius of their abandoned rental car on both March 15 and 16, 2011. The cell phone evidence provided crucial corroboration that Donovan was present in the specific area during the exact time period when the victims disappeared, Agent Martinez documented in her case report. This technical evidence directly contradicted his claims of having no knowledge of the incident or the location. Investigation into Donovan's background revealed a disturbing pattern of targeting tourists and outdoor enthusiasts in remote desert areas across multiple states. Arizona authorities linked him to at least 3 similar incidents between 2008 and 2010, including 2 cases where hikers had been robbed and assaulted in isolated locations, and 1 case where campers had been threatened and robbed at knife point. The pattern analysis conducted by FBI behavioral specialists indicated that Donovan had likely developed a systematic approach to identifying and targeting vulnerable individuals in remote desert environments. His method appeared to involve surveillance of parking areas commonly used by hikers, followed by tracking potential victims to isolated locations. Donovan's criminal history and behavioral patterns clearly indicated that he was a serial predator who specifically targeted people in isolated desert environments FBI criminal profiler Dr. Amanda Richardson explained in her behavioral analysis. The location where the victim's car was found would have been an ideal surveillance point for someone systematically looking to identify and target vulnerable individuals. Additional evidence emerged when investigators contacted outdoor equipment retailers throughout the region. Store security footage from March 2011 showed Donovan attempting to sell camera equipment matching the description of items owned by Chen and Williams at 3 different locations within a week of their disappearance. Store employees at 2 locations remembered Donovan because his explanations for selling expensive photography equipment were inconsistent and suspicious. One employee had refused the transaction due to concerns about the legitimacy of Donovan's ownership of the equipment. On September 23, 2021, after 6 days of intensive interrogation and confrontation with mounting physical evidence, Donovan requested to speak with investigators without his attorney present. During this crucial session, he provided a detailed confession that filled in the missing pieces about what had happened to Chen and Williams during their final hours. According to Donovan's statement, he had been camping in the area and conducting surveillance of the parking location when he observed the couple arrive and begin preparing for their desert hike. He followed them at a distance for approximately 2 hours, initially intending to burglarize their unattended vehicle, but deciding to confront them directly when he realized they were carrying valuable camera equipment and cash. Donovan admitted to following the victims deep into the desert, with the specific intention of robbing them of their equipment and money, Detective Rodriguez documented in her confession report. His statement indicated that the encounter escalated beyond robbery when the victims attempted to resist his demands and tried to escape. The confession revealed that Donovan had used a large knife to force Chen and Williams to hike deeper into the desert toward the Devil's Garden area, a location he knew well from previous illegal activities, and where he believed they would never be discovered by search teams or casual hikers. According to his detailed statement, Donovan had forced both victims to remove their hiking boots and outer clothing to prevent them from attempting to escape across the harsh desert terrain. He then used their own climbing rope to secure them to the large barrel cactus, positioning them in a way that would maximize their discomfort and prevent any possibility of self-rescue. Donovan's confession revealed the deliberate and calculated nature of his actions, Detective Rodriguez noted. He specifically chose restraint methods and a location designed to ensure that the victims could not survive or be easily discovered, contradicting any claims that their deaths were unintentional. The statement described how Donovan had taken the couple's camera equipment, cash, and other valuable items before leaving them restrained in the desert heat without water, food, or protection from the elements. He admitted to understanding that they would not survive, but claimed he had not specifically intended for them to die. Forensic analysis of the crime scene directly contradicted Donovan's claims about his intentions. The positioning of the restraints, the removal of the victims' protective clothing and footwear, and the confiscation of their water supplies clearly indicated deliberate actions designed to ensure they could not survive the desert environment. Dr. Patricia Hernandez, the county coroner, determined that both Chen and Williams had survived for several days after being restrained, dying from dehydration, exposure, and heat exhaustion. The extended timeline of their deaths demonstrated the prolonged suffering they endured before succumbing to the harsh desert conditions. The forensic evidence unequivocally indicated that both victims endured several days of extreme suffering before death, Dr. Hernandez testified during preliminary court proceedings. The defendant's actions demonstrated a callous disregard for human life and clear knowledge that his victims would not survive their ordeal. Additional charges were filed against Donovan in October 2021, including 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, kidnapping, armed robbery, and desecration of human remains. Prosecutors announced their intention to seek life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, citing the premeditated nature of the crimes and the extreme suffering inflicted on the victims. The special circumstances designation was based on the crimes being committed during the course of a robbery and kidnapping and the presence of multiple victims. Under California law, these factors made Donovan eligible for the state's harshest penalties. The families of Michael Chen and Sarah Williams attended Donovan's arraignment on October 15, 2021, marking their first opportunity to confront the man responsible for their children's deaths. The proceeding was highly emotional, with both families providing victim impact statements describing not only their immediate grief, but also the decade of uncertainty and prolonged anguish they had endured. "This individual stole far more than our children's lives," Linda Williams stated during her victim impact presentation. "He condemned our entire families to 10 years of torture, not knowing whether Michael and Sarah were alive or dead, whether they were suffering somewhere or had found peace. That additional cruelty represents a form of ongoing victimization that demands recognition." David Chen's statement focused on the ripple effects of the prolonged uncertainty on both families, including the impact on siblings, grandparents, and extended family members who had all been affected by the decade-long mystery. "Every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering was marked by their absence and our questions," he testified. "Marcus Donovan didn't just commit these horrible crimes. He extended our suffering for 10 additional years." The case attracted significant national media attention during the prosecution phase, with legal analysts noting both the strengths and challenges of prosecuting a decade-old crime based on physical evidence, behavioral patterns, and the defendant's confession. However, prosecutors expressed strong confidence in their case. The combination of DNA evidence, possession of the victim's property, cell phone location data, witness testimony, and the defendant's detailed confession provides an overwhelming case for conviction on all charges. District Attorney Jason Anderson announced during a press conference, "We are fully committed to securing justice for Michael Chen, Sarah Williams, and their families." Donovan's defense team, led by experienced public defender Rebecca Torres, initially argued that the confession had been coerced through prolonged interrogation and that the physical evidence was insufficient to prove premeditated murder. They requested that charges be reduced to voluntary manslaughter, claiming that Donovan had not specifically intended to cause the victims' deaths. However, plea negotiations broke down completely when prosecutors refused to consider any reduced charges, citing the deliberate and calculated nature of Donovan's actions, the extreme suffering endured by the victims, and the defendant's extensive criminal history of targeting vulnerable individuals in remote locations. The case proceeded to trial in March 2022, nearly 11 years after the original disappearance. The trial lasted 7 weeks and included testimony from more than 40 witnesses, including forensic experts, law enforcement officers, behavioral analysts, and family members who provided context about the victims' characters and the impact of their loss. The prosecution presented a comprehensive and methodical case demonstrating Donovan's presence at the crime scene through multiple forms of evidence, his possession of victims' property, his attempts to sell their equipment, and his documented pattern of targeting tourists in remote desert areas across multiple states and several years. Key prosecution testimony came from Dr. Michael Foster, the forensic anthropologist, who provided detailed analysis of the physical evidence and crime scene. His testimony explained how the restraint patterns, positioning of the remains, and environmental factors supported the prosecution's timeline and theory of events. The physical evidence clearly demonstrates that both individuals were alive, conscious, and aware when they were secured to the cactus, Dr. Foster testified. The positioning and restraint methods used were specifically designed to incapacitate the victims completely while maximizing their exposure to lethal environmental conditions. Additional crucial testimony came from the FBI's behavioral analysis team, which presented evidence about Donovan's systematic approach to targeting victims and his escalating pattern of violence in desert crimes over several years preceding the Chen Williams incident. The defense team attempted to argue that Donovan's confession was unreliable due to the extended interrogation period and that the physical evidence could support alternative interpretations of events. However, cross-examination revealed multiple inconsistencies in Donovan's various statements to investigators and highlighted physical evidence that directly contradicted his claims about his intentions and actions. Defense arguments were further undermined by testimony from Arizona law enforcement officers who described similar crimes attributed to Donovan, establishing a clear pattern of predatory behavior targeting vulnerable individuals in remote desert environments. The jury deliberated for 4 days before returning unanimous guilty verdicts on all charges. The verdicts were announced on April 30, 2022, with Donovan maintaining his emotionless demeanor as guilty verdicts were read for each count, including both first-degree murder charges. Judge Patricia Williams, who had presided over the entire trial, scheduled sentencing for June 20, 2022. Under California law, the conviction on 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances carried a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The sentencing hearing provided both families with additional opportunities to address the court and describe the comprehensive impact of Donovan's crimes on their lives, extended families, and communities. The statements were emotionally powerful and detailed the ongoing effects of both the original crimes and the decade of uncertainty that followed. Marcus Donovan's crimes created multiple layers of victimization, Robert Williams told the court during his impact statement. First, he brutally ended our children's lives in the most horrible way imaginable. Then he condemned us to 10 years of not knowing what had happened, forcing us to imagine every possible scenario while desperately searching for answers that only he possessed. Helen Chen focused her statement on the broader impact of the crimes on Michael's career aspirations, Sarah's artistic goals, and the grandchildren that would never be born. Donovan didn't just end 2 lives, she testified. He eliminated entire future families, careers, contributions to society, and relationships that would have enriched countless other lives. Judge Williams delivered the maximum sentence available under California law, imposing life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on both murder charges, plus additional consecutive sentences totaling 35 years for the kidnapping, robbery, and other charges. The comprehensive sentence ensured that Donovan would never be eligible for release under any circumstances. The defendant's actions represent a level of premeditation, cruelty, and callous disregard for human life that demands the harshest punishment available under our legal system, Judge Williams stated during the sentencing proceeding. Michael Chen and Sarah Williams were young people with unlimited potential, who were targeted, terrorized, and ultimately executed simply because they chose to explore the natural beauty of our desert landscape. Following the conclusion of legal proceedings, both families announced the establishment of the Chen Williams Memorial Foundation, dedicated to improving safety education for desert recreation, supporting search and rescue operations in remote areas, and advocating for enhanced law enforcement resources for investigating crimes in isolated environments. The foundation received significant initial funding from a civil settlement with several equipment manufacturers whose products had failed to provide adequate emergency communication capabilities during the victim's ordeal. Additional funding came from public donations and contributions from outdoor recreation organizations throughout the Southwest. Michael and Sarah loved exploring nature and would want their legacy to include helping others stay safe while enjoying the outdoors, David Chen announced during the Foundation's inaugural press conference. While we cannot bring them back, we can work to prevent similar tragedies and ensure that other families don't endure the decade of uncertainty that we experienced. The case prompted significant changes in law enforcement protocols for missing persons investigations in remote areas throughout California and neighboring states. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department implemented comprehensive new procedures requiring expanded search areas, extended investigation timelines, and enhanced coordination with federal agencies for cases involving experienced outdoor enthusiasts. The Chen Williams investigation demonstrated that even the most comprehensive initial response can miss crucial evidence and potential suspects, Sheriff John McMahon explained during a departmental policy review. We have incorporated the lessons learned from this case into our standard operating procedures to improve our effectiveness in future similar investigations. Desert communities throughout the Mojave region also implemented enhanced safety measures, including installation of additional emergency communication equipment at popular trailheads, improved coordination between park services and local law enforcement agencies, and expanded public education programs about desert safety and crime prevention. Multiple desert recreation organizations adopted the Chen Williams case as a primary example in their safety education programs, emphasizing the importance of detailed itinerary sharing, carrying multiple communication devices, traveling in larger groups, and maintaining awareness of personal security, in addition to environmental hazards. Michael and Sarah were experienced, well-prepared hikers who took reasonable precautions for environmental hazards, explained Desert Recreation Safety Council President Maria Santos. Their case demonstrates that even the most prepared individuals can become victims of criminal predators. Comprehensive safety planning must address both environmental and human threats. The investigation officially closed on September 1, 2022, with Detective Rodriguez submitting a comprehensive final case report documenting the complete resolution of one of the most complex and prolonged investigations in San Bernardino County law enforcement history. The case had ultimately consumed more than 2,000 hours of investigative time and involved dozens of law enforcement professionals across multiple agencies over more than 11 years. This case represents both the greatest challenges and the ultimate potential for success in modern law enforcement, Detective Rodriguez concluded in her final report. Advanced forensic techniques, persistent investigation, interagency cooperation, and the determination of grieving families ultimately provided justice for the victims and demonstrated that no case is truly unsolvable. The families held a private memorial service for Michael Chen and Sarah Williams on September 15, 2022, exactly 11 years and 6 months after their disappearance. The service, conducted in a desert location near where their final journey had begun, celebrated their lives while acknowledging the long and difficult path to justice that had finally reached its conclusion. Today we can finally lay Michael and Sarah to rest with the knowledge that their killer has been held fully accountable, David Chen said during the memorial ceremony. While our families will never fully recover from this devastating loss, we have found some measure of peace in learning the truth and seeing justice served. The Chen Williams case became a landmark investigation in American law enforcement, demonstrating how persistence, advancing forensic technology, interagency cooperation, and family advocacy can ultimately solve even the most challenging cold cases. The resolution provided not only justice for the victims, but also established valuable precedents and lessons for law enforcement agencies throughout the country. As the Mojave Desert continued to attract outdoor enthusiasts and adventure seekers from around the world, the story of Michael Chen and Sarah Williams served as both a cautionary tale about hidden dangers and a powerful testament to the importance of never abandoning the search for truth and justice, regardless of how long the desert might keep its darkest secrets hidden beneath the endless sun.